Hey, welcome back to the channel. And today we have 8 Behind the Ball, question mark, by Willpower. We've done plenty of puzzles by Willpower in the past, so let's just add this one to the collection. As you can see, there's quite a bit going on, and we'll get into our rule sets and we'll figure out how we can solve the puzzle. So we've got normal Sudoku rules apply. So every row, every column, and every 3x3 box contains the digits 1 through 9 once each. There are no repeats in those specific situations. Arrows, numbers on arrows, sum to the number in the arrow's circle. So what that means is, let's say this one right here, these 3 digits, whatever they may be, when added together equals this, whatever's in the circle of that arrow. And now this one specifically says numbers do not repeat on arrows. I'm glad I looked at that prior to saying something. Because there are times when you could have, if it does not specifically say numbers don't repeat on arrows, in this specific situation, you could have a 1, 1, 2, or something like that to create a small number here. But in this case, we do not have any repetition of numbers on arrows. So let's remember that. Not always my strong point, but we're going to try to do it. Then we've got killers. Killer cages. So numbers in cages sum to the number in the top left corner of the cage. So let's use this one as an example. All that means that these 2 digits, whatever they are, added up together must equal the digit in the top left corner. In this instance, that would have been 13. Then we have KROPKI pairs, so numbers with a black dot between them are in a 2-to-1 ratio. So these black dots, whatever this one is, this one here, whatever this one is, this one here has to be either half or double of that other value. So this would be, if this is x, this is either half of x or 2x. Not all possible dots are given, so that means that there's no negative constraint. We can't say that this digit and this digit couldn't be in a 2-to-1 ratio. What else do we have? There's one more line in here. Although not necessary for the solve, notice where all 8s appear on the grid after completion. Okay, so what is that going to mean? I don't really know. There must be some formation of 8s that isn't somehow interesting to the overall solve of this. I guess we'll wait and find out to figure out what that is. But those are our rules, and let's get started on this thing and see if we can figure it out. Now, probably a good place to start would be our, well, I don't know if it would be a great place to start, but our arrows, because we have the stipulation that numbers don't repeat on arrows, we can see that every single arrow that's on or in this puzzle is a 3-cell arrow. And we know that the bare minimum you can do with a 3-cell arrow is 1, 2, 3, which is 6. So every single one of our circles must be at least 6. So we have a 6, 7, 8, 9 in all of those. Now, do I want to write that in just yet? I don't think I do. So what seems like a good place to look? Another thing we know in terms of KROPKI pairs, we can never put a 5, 7, or a 9 on any of them, because you can't have or double either of those 3 digits and have a valid Sudoku integer, digit, whatever. But there doesn't seem to be enough of those KROPKI dots in a certain area that would make some relevance there. And another way to look at it would be, I guess we have a couple little things that I can see here with these KROPKI dots that are on arrows. We know there's a few ways to do a KROPKI dot. They're either 1, 2, 2, 4, 3, 6, or 4, 8. Those are the only combinations of black KROPKI dots we can do. Now, if we were to try to do a 4, 8 on a black KROPKI dot that's also on an arrow, we're breaking the puzzle straight off, because you got 12 right there. And then you'd have to add another digit to make some single digit number, which can't work. The same is true for 3, 6. So we've actually removed half of the possibilities for these KROPKI dots. because now we're set with only 1, 2, or 2, 4 are valid. And if you were listening, you would see that we are guaranteed to have a 2 on these 3 instances of KROPKI dots, because 1, 2, or 2, 4, 2 is always a given possibility. Now, how useful is that? Well, it gives us an X-wing on 2s, and what an X-wing in the most simplest terms, only means that if you look at 2 regions and you know you have 2 places, or it could be even 3 places, what have you, but in this instance we have 2 different locations where a 2 could go. If I put a 2 here, I'll have to put a 2 here just by Sudoku. If I put a 2 here, I'll have to put a 2 here just by Sudoku, which means we can say that there can never be a 2 in any of these other locations, because if we did so, it would break the puzzle. You wouldn't be able to put a 2 in one of these sides. So therefore, none of these can be a 2. And we also got a 2 pointing here, so none of those can be a 2. So that forces there to be a 2 in one of these locations. Now, that actually does a little bit of more work for us, because now we can look at this black KROPKI dot, and we can say there can't be a 2 in this black KROPKI dot, so we can't do 1, 2, or 2, 4. So what that leaves us with is 3, 6, or 4, 8. Now, we can never put an 8 on one of these lines, period, because they're all 3 cell lines, and we know digits do not repeat on them. So therefore, if you were to put an 8 on one of them, the very least you could also put on that line would be 1 and 2, which is 3, which gives you an 11. So therefore, we know that this is a 3, 6 KROPKI dot. And what more does that give us? Well, it means that one of these is a 9. And why is that? Because we know one of these has to be a 6. And then the least we can put on the other 2 of whichever line it is, like we just said previously, is 1, 2. Now, if it was 1, 2, that would give us 3. So 6 plus 3 is 9. Now we can take that further, because we know one of them has to be a 6, so therefore the other 2 digits on its line has to be 1, 2. There is no other option. But neither of these can be 2, because these 2 see a 2 in its own box. This one sees a 2 by Sudoku looking in its column. So therefore, the only place we can possibly put a 2, and we have to put a 2 on one of these lines, is right here. So therefore, that is a 2, and that's going to give us a 2 here. Now that we know this is a 2, we know this has to be a 6, because we said one of these 2 has to be a 6, the other one, and then the rest of the line has to be 1, 2. So this has to be the 6, this has to be 3, this has to be 1, and this has to be 9. 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. Now that we've gotten a little something, we've got a 2 on this black KROPKI dot, so this either 1 or 4. We cannot determine just yet which one of those that is. This 9 is actually a little bit interesting, because it points into a 13 cage. Now, it doesn't give us an answer to what the 13 cage is, but it does reduce our possibilities. And it might not actually give us a whole ton of information, but it just is something I see right clearly. So this 13 cage either is an 8, 5, or a 6, 7. Which of those 2, I don't know yet. So now we've got a 3 here. The very least this can be is a 4, because we already have 1, 2, and 3 in this box. So this is at least a 4, which means this is at least a 7 already. So this has to either be 8 or 9, because we have to add something to it at the bare minimum. I think what we can say is this could go up to a 5, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus 1. Now, I think what we can also say is this is going to just be a 1. Because if this is a 4 and this is a 3, that would be 7. So this could either be 1 or 2. Well, it can't be a 2. If this is a 5 and this is 3, that's an 8, and this can only be a 1. So this has to be 1. Now, we don't know if this is 4 or 5 to change this to be 8 or 9. But we do know there has to be a 1 somewhere up here. doesn't necessarily tell us a ton there, does it? Okay. Now, is there something further I can do with one of these crop keys? Or something I can start seeing on other lines or crop keys? Or arrows, I should say, not necessarily lines. Now, none of these killer cages really gives me a ton of information just yet. At least I don't think so. Just running some options through my head. But it's not giving me a ton to work with. Now, I don't think we're going to get much with the remaining digits here yet, because there's still plenty that needs to be done to be able to figure those out. This 12 isn't very useful right now, because we don't know anything about it. It could literally be anything. All we know is there's no 1 or 2, but that's, once again, worthless at this point. I mean, is there anything further we can do with 2s now that we have a 2 up there? Or maybe it's going to get us into 9s or something along those lines. Because the 9, we know we can't put a 9 on an arrow anywhere ever. So maybe there is something lurking in the deep with these 9s. Let's just take a quick look to rule out. And we also know 9 can never go on a black crop key. So let's get those situated. This could never be a 9, just anecdotally, because we have a 2 here, so this was a 9, this would have to be a 2. I guess it does mean we have to have a 9, so if you look at all my shading in this row, the only place there can be a 9 is over here, so none of these can be 9. Do we have anything else that's looking interesting? I mean, this can't be a 9 because it forced this to be a 3. This is kind of small pickings, I think. Could this be a 9? Yeah, it could still. Because this could be 2, 4 with a 3. We know we can't put a 1. Well, actually, we do know that. Okay, I didn't see that right off the bat until I started thinking about what this could be. But this 1 right here means that these digits, at the bare minimum, are 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4 is 9, so therefore this has to be 9. And these have to be 2, 3, 4, so this has to be a 2, 4 pair. This has to be a 3. And that gets us moving again, hopefully. Now, can we look back at our 9 and say anything about it? Because I said none of these could be 9s. None of these could be 9s. Yes, so we're getting a 9 here. It's looking like we're getting a lot of 9s in our arrows, and I wonder if that has to do something with our 8 behind the ball situation. So none of these are 9s, but one of these is. What else can we show? I mean, clearly we can't put a 9 in a 9 killer cage. What else? What else? None of these are 9s, so one of these has to be a 9. So that's ruling out all of these. Yep, so there we go. That's going to tell us this is a 9. None of these are 9s. We already knew that. None of these are 9s, but we already knew that. Well, we didn't technically know this one wasn't, but it doesn't do a ton of work for us. So we've got the 9s fairly well determined at this point. Not 100%, of course, but we've got something to work with. Now, can we continue with our 9s, but maybe not in quite so an obvious Sudoku fashion, similar to what was done down here? Is there anything we can say cannot occur on any of these lines that would force 9 to go in, to continue to do what it's doing and going into each of these arrow circles? I don't quite see so. I mean, the one that does the most is the ones, because if you remove the 1, like we said, you have to do 2, 3, 4, and that's the only possibility. I can't necessarily remove a 1 from here just yet, because you could have a 1-2 pair. We could still have a 1 here with a 2 next to it. We don't have anything that we can use to rule out either this being a 1 or a 2, because there's nothing pointing at this cage at the moment. So what else can't go on? So 7 and 8 and 9 can never go on an arrow, because we stated before, if you had a 7 or you had an 8, if you had an 8, you couldn't do it, period. If you had a 7, the only way you could do it is if you could have put 1 and 1 on it, but we've already know that numbers don't repeat. So 7s, 8s, and 9s can never go on arrows. I'm kind of looking at 7s really, which is why I'm crossing off some of these KROPKI dots, because we know black KROPKI dots can't have 7s on them. So let's take a look there and see maybe if that gives us any information as well. Because none of these can be. So we know there is a 7 in one of these 3, which removes 7s from all of those. Let's get rid of that one, just for the visual. Now, I don't quite have any X-wings that I can use with these 7s. I mean, there has to be a 7 somewhere in these 6 boxes. And if I put a 7 in this 12, clearly I need to have a 5 with it, but 5 is in no way limited right now. And 7 and 4, so I guess technically this can't be a 7 because this would have to be a 4, but again, it's not a ton of info there, so I'm not sure that the 7s are helpful. And 8s are probably going to be the same way. I can't put an 8 here because that would force us to be a 2. Can't put 8, we already said, on any of the lines or arrows. I'm just kind of doing this methodically right now because I don't see a specific in at the moment. So I could still have an 8 out here. That would put a 4 here and a 6 here, and that does not break anything. All right. This might be not looking at exactly what I need at the moment. No, I don't see anything with that going down that line. So let's step back again and take another look. So, is there any way to rule out a 1 in another way that I'm not seeing right now on these lines? Or at least on the ones that I know are 9s. Or I guess if I don't know that they're 9s, it helps just as well, because I could therefore say that if it doesn't have a 1 on it, it must be a 9. Now, we know neither one of these is a 1, but we could still have a 1 here, and this could be a 2, 3. Or, I mean, that didn't really come out the way I meant to say it. This could be a 4. If we didn't have a 1 here, this would be a 4, and these would be 2, 3. That's what I was trying to say. Poorly at that, but that's what I was going for, which would force a 9 here. If we had, like I said, we can't rule out these digits. Well, can we use this 2, 4 maybe here? I think that's probably where I've just lost my step. So this can't be 1, 2. It can't be 2, 4, and it can't be 4, 8. So this has to be 3, 6. So that's something. Now, can this be 6? If it is, this would have to be 1 and this would have to be 2, which seems to work. Now, I can't put a 1 in any of these locations. But I can't rule a 1 out from either of these at the moment. Maybe I need to look deeper at 1s again. Because I think there's some logic to be had there. Clearly you can't put 1s in any of these. This one could be a 1. Can't put a 1 on a 12. Can't put a 1 in this 10 because you already have a 9 here. Can't put a 1 there. Can't put a 1 in any of these just by basic Sudoku. I make sure I don't miss those. None of the circles can be 1s. So what does that do? If there, well, I was going to jump to something. I want to just think about something first. No, it doesn't seem like it. Okay. What if I did not put a 1 with this 2? Which means that none of these could be 1s. This would have to be a 2, 4. And this would have to be a 3. That all seems to check out perfectly fine. Of course, this would be a 9. Now, if I did put a 1 on there, I don't think that does us anything. Or trying to think about that does us anything. Now, is there anything maybe I can continue to look at here? Well, what about 8? Do we have anything with 8 we can do? We know this can't be 8. We know none of these are 8s. This can't be an 8 because this would have to be a 3, and it sees that. That can't be an 8 for the same reason down here. Now the problem is we don't have any 8s, so it's hard to rule out exactly where the 8 would go. In these situations. Because I'm tantalizingly close to figuring out where 8s could possibly go and 1s could possibly go in this bottom row. But we're not there. Just trying to check. We know that wasn't an 8. We already said that. Okay. This is not popping up anything of use to me. So what do I not see that's probably right in front of my face? Well, I was going to look at this one, but I mean, there's still quite a bit that can be done here. I mean, it could be 1, 2, 2, 4, or 4, 8. All we know is this is not 1. So I kind of don't necessarily even want to mark that in because it's not all that helpful. Are any of the other KROPKI dots giving me more information than I think they are? Because I can't really rule anything out from these at the moment, at least. Now, what if I said there wasn't a 1 on this? It would give me an X-wing of 2s, and it would force a 2 onto here. But again, that was already a possibility, and most likely going to happen. Now, if I could say there has to be a 2 on here, which I can't, I still don't think it would give us enough information up here to make any use out of it. Is there anything, let's say, in this column where we can make something work? And I mean, 4s, none of those can be 4, but again, we've got these 2 little things sticking out, just mocking us. What the heck am I missing? Maybe it has something to do with this 13. We know it's not 9-4 because we've got a 2-4 down here. The other options were 8-5 and 7-6. I'm just going to look at this for a second because I'm starting to run out of ideas. Now, if this was 8-5, that would force this to be a 4, and therefore this would have to be another 8. So that can't work. So it's not 8-5. There's something. So we know these are 6 and 7. We know there has to be a 6 somewhere up here, which could very well force a 6-7 here. These are from 5, 8, and 9, but we know there's no 9 here. So we do have a 9 in one of these two, which removes the 9 from here. Okay, there we go. Now we know this is a 9. I probably should have looked at that earlier, but it didn't seem like it was super useful until I started looking at this digit. Okay, so there's something. We've got another 9 now. How do we continue to use it is the question, because that doesn't really remove any options from anywhere else. Like I said, we have to have a 5, 8, and 9 in these, but again, that doesn't show us anything at the moment. We know this is a 9. It still doesn't really tell us much about this KROPKI dot, I don't believe. Because if it was a 1-2 crop, well, maybe it does. Yeah, if it was a 1-2 KROPKI dot, this would have to be a 6, and we have a 6 looking at it. So this cannot be a 1-2, which means this is not a 1. And therefore, this has to be a 2-4. Okay. Now we've got a 2-4 pair looking here, so this has to be 5. That's forcing this to be a 9. Okay. Now we've got no 9s in any of these digits, so this has to be 9. And now we don't have 9s in any of those, so we've got an X-wing of 9s here that isn't quite resolved. All right. Now we need to put a 7, but it could be either of those, and then the other is 4. Well, we've got KROPKIs. We've got an X-wing on 4s, so none of these can be 4, so this is 4. Now, these two, therefore, have to be from 7 and 8. This can't be 7, so it's 8 and 7. What else can we do? We know everything on this column except for this digit, which has to be a 3. We could have just said that with a 2-4 pair. This has to be a 3 anyway, but you know me in making things more complicated or not using the obvious solution. Now, can we start doing anything with these other lines or arrows? I don't know why I keep calling them lines, but how about, no, there's not quite enough information for this 13 yet. I mean, we might be able to do some kind of math to determine what these two must add up to, but I don't want to go down that road just yet. These digits here, we know we have to have. What do we have to have? We have to have a 1, a 5, and an 8. And the only thing that tells us is where the 1 goes, which is what we already knew. But I guess what it also does tell us that this cannot be a 5-8. because therefore this would have to just be a 1 to fill both spaces. So this is not 5, 8, and it's not 9, 4, so therefore it has to be 6, 7, which is what I thought might occur, but that actually gives me the information. So therefore these two digits have to be from 5 and 8. Again, that doesn't give me any real info. Same goes for these two digits. They have to be from 5 and 8. All right. What's next in line? Well, we know this can't be a 3, 6 because of that 3. Now, does that really help us? Because you still could do 1, 2, 2, 4, or 4, 8. No. Can we do 4, 8? I think we can. If this is 8, this is 4, this would have to be a 1, which works. And these would be 2, 3, which works perfectly fine. So that is definitely a possibility. It could very likely be the possibility. We know that there's no 2s or 4s on these lines at all. We know we can't put 7, 8, or 9 on these. So let me just kind of run through some possibilities here. This may or may not help us at all. These have to be from 1, 3, 5, and 6. Are those the only possibilities? If it is, it's a quad right there. 1 works, 2 does not, 3 works, 4 does not, 5, 6. We cannot put a 7 on either of these lines. So yeah, it's only 1, 3, 5, and 6. That's kind of interesting how that worked, which means that these have to be from 7 and 8. It's the only leftovers. Now this can't be a 7, so it is 8, and this is 7, and it's going to give us our 2, 4, and it's going to at least solve this X-wing. Now, what we do know is that we do not have all 2, 3, 4s in terms of our 9s. Well, we kind of already knew that anyway because we had a 2, 6, 1 down here. But what we do know is that I think one of these two is a 6, 1, and the other one's going to be a 3, 5. So these two digits have to be from 1 and 2, because 5, 3 is 8, clearly. To get to 9, you just add 1, and then 6 and 1 is 7, so you add 2 to get up to it. So if I've got a 1, 2 pair, that can't be a 1, so this is 1, and therefore this is 5. And now we're going to be able to pop down here and fill these two in. So what did I say? We were missing 8 and what? Sorry, I was looking at this. This is 8. This is 5. Okay. Right, now we've got quite a bit going in here. So this is either 1 or 2. So this has to either be 1, 2, or 4. If this was a 1, 2, like I said, this would be 7. If this was 2, 1, this would be 8. And if this was 2, 4, this would be 5. So let's just put those in there for now. Oh, but we know these are a 1, 2 pair, so this can never be a 1 or 2. So this is 4, this is 5. So therefore, this is not a 5, 3 pair. This is the 5, 3 pair. And we can get rid of all this and put our 1 and our 2 in. Now that 2 is going to tell us this is a 2. So I can get rid of that 1. And can we do anything with our 1s? Because it looks like we're kind of not quite there. I don't know. That doesn't look like it's going to do anything. There might be some Sudoku we can do here. This one has to be 1 or 4. I don't know which one it is just yet. I was trying to see if I had anything opening up any of these pencil marks I already have in here, and I don't just yet. Now, if this was 2, 1, that would be, well, I don't necessarily know if this is a 9, so I don't want to say that. If this was 2, 1, we'd have 3 there. this would have to be 5 and this would have to be 9, or 8, sorry. If this was 2, 4, we're already up to 6. This would have to be 3 and this would have to be 9. So these are from 8 and 9. And what did we say this would have to be? If this was 2, 1, this could be 5. There's nothing seeing that. And if it's 2, 4, this would have to be 3. Okay. Again, that didn't help us all that much, so I guess this 13 is probably the better, where we should have just looked next, and it was sitting there, I just didn't look at it. We can't do 9, 4 or 8, 5 here, so this is another 6, 7 type, and we've got a 6 here, so let's put our 7 and our 6. That's going to give us our 1 and our 6, and our 3 and our 6. Now, we've got a digit right here that's just open. This has to be 8. Now, this cannot be 4, 8, and it cannot be 3, 6. So it's from 1, 2, and 4. This is not 1. There has to be a 2 in here somewhere. And there's nothing else really pointing at that, so we've got a 3 here. These two digits have to equal 6 in some way. They can't be 4, 2, because we've got a 2 up here looking at it. And they clearly can't be 3, 3, because you already have a 3, and you would be repeating. So the only way to do it is 5, 1 to make 6. So therefore, this has to be 1. This has to be 5. So therefore, this is not 1. So we end up with a 2, 4 pair. This is 7. That's going to give us our 6 and our 7. That 1 is going to tell us this is a 4. So we are now at 6 here. So this has to be 3. This has to be 9. We can get rid of those marks. That 9 now is going to finish giving us a 9 here. So it turns out all of our circles were 9s. These have to be from 5 and 8. Is there anything looking at those? Not necessarily, but maybe there is something here. If this was 5, this would have to be 7. If it was 8, it would have to be 4. No, none of those look in here. What about these 3 digits? What's left here? And we'll go up to this in a second. We have to put a 1 somewhere. One of these two. We have to put a 5. Okay, so this has to be 5. And then therefore this is going to have to be 1. And this is going to have to be 8. And that 1's going to look over here and give us our 4 and our 7 and our 5 and our 8. Now, we know what this digit is. It is a 3. These are from 7 and 8. Not quite determined yet. 5, just glancing over here, gives us our 3 and our 5. Now we've got 4 digits left here. We need to put a 2 somewhere, and it can't be either of these, so it has to be on here, on the KROPKI. We already have a 1, so it cannot be a 1, 2 pair, so it must be a 2, 4 pair. If we have a 2, 4 pair here, if this is a 2, this is 8 or 6. And I can't rule out either one. This has to be 6 or 8 as well, just because those are the only digits also left in this region. Okay, now, what are these 2 digits? We could probably figure something out here. Or we can just say that there's no 1 on this. This has to be a 2, 3. Let's do that first. So this is 2, this is 3 to equal our 9. That 2 is going to give us our 4 and our 2 and our 6 and our 8. And that's going to break all of this up. 8, 7. Let's get that finished. These 3 digits have to be from 1, 3, and 6. 3 can't be in either of those, so that's a 3. 1 can't be there, so that's 1, and this is 6. Now we're going to know what this is. So it's, what do we got, 4 and 7? We got a 7 here. 4, 7. That 4 sees the 2 and the 4. This is a given 5. This is a given 1. This is a given 6. And this is a given 8. And there we go. Congrats. Looks good as far as I can tell. There is no solution provided. Now, where all 8s appear on the grid after completion, we've got, let's look to see where they all are. 8s, 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 all sorts of 8s. Well, 8 behind the ball, they all, except for one, which is kind of weird, they all do appear to be behind the 9 ball. Now that would be maybe it's more referencing like a pool situation. This one right here is not, which is curious. Maybe it was just impossible to get all of them exactly right, or it just happens to be slightly off. But there we go. So that is a solve, which is good. Took me a little while to get going on this one, but in the end, it worked out quite well. I hope you all enjoyed it as well, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.